What you're about to witness will shock you to your absolute core. The WWE Universe has been betrayed, and I'm about to expose something that the higher-ups don't want you to know. Brock Lesnar, the so-called Beast Incarnate, the man who's been protected for over 2 decades, just got absolutely humiliated in a way that WWE tried to hide from the world. And here's the twisted part that's going to make your blood boil. This wasn't some random attack. This was calculated. This was personal. And the man behind it, Jacob Fatu, just sent a message that's going to change everything you thought you knew about power in WWE. If you think you know what happened, I promise you, you don't know the half of it. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why WWE is in full panic mode right now. Let me ask you something that's going to infuriate every single Brock Lesnar fan watching this right now. How is it possible that a man who's been booked as invincible for 22 years, a man who's conquered the Undertaker's streak, destroyed John Cena, manhandled Roman Reigns, and made grown men look like children? How is it possible that this same man got taken out in under 3 minutes by someone WWE barely gave screen time to just months ago? You want to know the real answer? Because WWE has been lying to you. They've been feeding you the same tired Beast Incarnate narrative while knowing that Brock Lesnar's mystique was built on selective booking, protected segments, and making sure he never faced anyone who could expose him. And here's where it gets really interesting. Jacob Fatu didn't just beat Brock Lesnar. He destroyed him. He embarrassed him. He made the Beast look like a wounded animal limping back to the slaughterhouse. And the way WWE tried to cut the cameras, the way they scrambled to commercial, the way the commentary team went silent, that tells you everything you need to know. But before we dive into the nuclear fallout from what happened, let me paint you the full picture of why this moment is so controversial that WWE executives are probably having emergency meetings as we speak. Now let's rewind and talk about the elephant in the room that nobody wants to address. Brock Lesnar has been the most protected superstar in WWE history. I'm not talking about kayfabe protection. I'm talking about real, backstage political protection that's kept him at the top while destroying the momentum of countless other superstars. Think about it. How many times has Brock disappeared for months only to come back and immediately get inserted into the main event picture? How many young, hungry talents have been fed to the Beast just to make him look unstoppable? Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Finn Balor, Riddle, the list goes on and on. These are incredible athletes who got buried just to maintain Brock's aura. And here's what makes this so maddening. While Brock was making his part-time millions, showing up whenever he felt like it, collecting massive paychecks for working 10 dates a year, there were guys in the locker room breaking their backs every single night, grinding on house shows, TV tapings, and pay-per-views, barely getting a fraction of what Brock was making. Now enter Jacob Fatu, a man who represents everything that WWE claims they don't value. He's not a WWE guy. He didn't come through their development system the traditional way. He's a hard-hitting, old-school warrior from the indies and international scene who earned every bit of respect he has. He's the son of the legendary Tama Fatu, nephew of Rikishi, cousin of the Usos and Roman Reigns, wrestling royalty with something to prove. But here's the twist that WWE didn't see coming. Jacob Fatu doesn't care about politics. He doesn't care about who's been protected and who hasn't. He came to WWE with one mission: to establish dominance and take what he believes is rightfully his. And WWE made a catastrophic mistake. They thought they could control him. They thought they could book him in the mid-card, have him put over their chosen ones, and keep him away from the main event scene. They were wrong. So let's talk about what actually went down, and trust me, the real story is even more insane than what you saw on TV. Smackdown was going as planned. Same formulaic show, same predictable segments. Then Brock Lesnar's music hit. The crowd popped because, let's be honest, as much as we criticize him, Brock is still a spectacle. He walked to the ring with Paul Heyman by his side, and they started cutting a promo about Brock being the apex predator, the one true beast, nobody can touch him, blah blah blah, the same promo we've heard 1,000 times. Heyman was going into his typical advocate mode, talking about how Brock has conquered everyone, how there's no one left who can challenge the beast incarnate. The crowd was eating it up because Heyman is a master at his craft. Then it happened. The lights went out. Not a planned blackout, this was different. You could feel the energy shift in that arena. When the lights came back on, there he was, Jacob Fatu, standing on the ramp with a look in his eyes that can only be described as pure fury. But here's what you didn't see on TV. Here's what the cameras missed or intentionally cut away from. Paul Heyman's face went ghost white. I'm talking about genuine fear in his eyes. And Brock? For the first time in years, we saw something in Brock Lesnar's expression that we haven't seen since his early days: uncertainty. Jacob Fatu didn't run to the ring. He didn't do a typical WWE entrance with pyro and fanfare. He walked with purpose, like a man on a mission, like a hitman who just located his target. Every step was calculated. Every movement was deliberate. This wasn't sports entertainment. This was personal. The Smackdown crowd in that arena went from cheering to dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. This wasn't the reaction WWE wanted. They want pops and cheers, but what they got was something more powerful. They got anticipation. They got fear. They got people genuinely wondering what is about to happen. Heyman tried to play it cool, getting on the mic, starting to say something about contractual obligations and scheduled appearances, but Jacob cut him off by doing something genius. He didn't say a word. He just kept walking, keeping his eyes locked on Brock. Now here's where things went completely off script, and I mean off script in a way that has WWE in crisis mode. Brock, being the alpha that he is, or thinks he is, decided he wasn't going to wait. He rolled out of the ring to meet Jacob head on. This is classic Brock, right? Establishing dominance, showing no fear. But what happened next will go down as one of the most shocking moments in WWE history. Jacob Fatu and Brock Lesnar met at the bottom of the ramp, and the two absolute titans locked up. The crowd erupted. This is what they came to see, two behemoths going to war. But within seconds, and I mean literal seconds, Jacob twisted Brock's arm, transitioned into a position, and delivered a devastating hip toss that sent Brock crashing into the barricade. The sound was sickening. You could hear the impact through the entire arena. Brock tried to get up, tried to shake it off like he always does, but Jacob was relentless. He grabbed Brock by the head and started delivering these brutal knee strikes to the body. And these weren't worked WWE-style knees, these were shoot-style knees that you could tell were hurting Brock. Commentary tried to sell it as a vicious assault, but you could hear the panic in their voices. Michael Cole was stuttering. Corey Graves went silent for a moment. They weren't prepared for this. Jacob then lifted Brock, and remember, this is a 286-pound former UFC champion we're talking about, lifted him like he was a cruiserweight and delivered a devastating Samoan drop right onto the announce table. The table exploded. Equipment went flying. Heyman was screaming. Security was scrambling. But here's the part that WWE desperately tried to hide. The cameras cut away for a few seconds, and in those few seconds, according to multiple sources at ringside, Jacob Fatu locked eyes with someone in the back. And that someone was Roman Reigns. This was a message. This wasn't just about destroying Brock Lesnar. This was about Jacob Fatu making a statement to his cousin, to the tribal chief, that there's a new apex predator in the bloodline hierarchy. When the cameras came back, Brock was laid out, motionless. Medical staff rushed to the scene. Heyman was beside himself, genuinely shook. And Jacob stood over Brock's body, raised his arms, and let out a war cry that sent chills down everyone's spine. The show went to commercial, but sources backstage say that Brock couldn't continue. He was helped to the back, and for the first time in years, Brock Lesnar looked vulnerable. Now let's talk about what this means, because the implications of what we just witnessed are massive and could reshape the entire WWE landscape. First off, Brock Lesnar's mystique is shattered. For over 20 years, WWE has built this character as an unstoppable force. But in less than 3 minutes, Jacob Fatu did what nobody has been able to do. He made Brock look weak. You think WWE wanted this? Absolutely not. Brock is a huge draw. He's a main event attraction. His name sells tickets and pay-per-views. But now, casual fans who don't follow the product closely are going to remember Brock as the guy who got demolished by Jacob Fatu. Second, and this is huge, the Bloodline saga just got a nuclear injection of intensity. We thought Roman Reigns had consolidated power. We thought Solo Sikoa's faction was the main threat. But Jacob Fatu just announced himself as a wild card who answers to nobody. Think about the dynamics now. You've got Roman
Reigns trying to maintain his tribal chief status. You've got Solo Sikoa building his own version of the Bloodline. And now you've got Jacob Fatu, who just proved he's the most dangerous Samoan in WWE history. Here's my controversial take that's going to make some of you mad. Jacob Fatu should be the one to dethrone Roman Reigns. Not Cody Rhodes, not Seth Rollins, not any of the usual suspects. Jacob Fatu. Why? Because it would be perfect storytelling. Family destroying family, the ultimate bloodline implosion, Jacob proving that Roman's tribal chief title is meaningless when there's someone more dominant in the family. But here's where WWE might drop the ball, and this is what infuriates me. WWE has a terrible track record of capitalizing on hot moments. They'll probably cool Jacob down, put him in some meaningless feud with a mid-carder, and waste this incredible momentum. Remember when Braun Strowman was the hottest thing in wrestling and they made him lose to Roman in the worst possible way? Remember when Keith Lee debuted on the main roster with massive momentum and they completely buried him? WWE has a pattern of screwing these things up. Third implication, what does this mean for Brock's future? Is Brock going to take his ball and go home like he's done multiple times before? Is he going to demand creative control to get his heat back? Or, and this would be fascinating, will we see a vulnerable Brock Lesnar for the first time ever? Imagine if WWE actually embraced this. Imagine Brock having to rebuild himself, having to prove he's still the beast. That could be incredible storytelling. But knowing WWE, they'll probably just book a squash match where Brock destroys some jobber to get his credibility back, and we'll be right back where we started. Now let me put on my conspiracy hat for a moment because there are some weird things about this situation that don't add up. Question number 1, how did Jacob Fatu get cleared to return? He's been injured for months, according to WWE programming. There was no indication he was coming back. No hype videos, no vignettes, nothing. That's not how WWE operates. They telegraph everything. Unless this was a shoot scenario that WWE had to play along with. Here's my theory, and I know this sounds crazy, but hear me out. What if Jacob Fatu's return wasn't sanctioned by the creative team? What if this was a negotiation tactic gone nuclear? There have been rumors, unconfirmed but usually reliable sources, that Jacob Fatu was unhappy with his position in WWE. He felt he was being underutilized, kept out of the main event picture because WWE didn't want to upset their established hierarchy. What if Jacob took matters into his own hands? What if he showed up at Smackdown and basically said, I'm going out there, and if you don't like it, fine, but I'm making a statement? That would explain why the production seemed so chaotic, why the camera cuts were so awkward, why commentary seemed genuinely shook. But here's the even crazier possibility. What if this was actually Brock's idea? Stay with me. What if Brock, who's always been smart about the business, realized that his mystique was getting stale? What if he approached WWE and said, I need to lose and lose badly to someone new to create fresh storylines? Brock's not stupid. He knows that his character has been booked into a corner. Every time he comes back, it's the same thing. Brock dominates, Brock wins, Brock leaves. That's not sustainable. Eventually, fans get bored. By taking this massive loss to Jacob Fatu, Brock actually creates new possibilities. Now we can get the rematch. We can get Brock trying to prove himself again. We can get new dream matches based on this shocking outcome. Let's talk about how the WWE Universe reacted to this bombshell, because social media exploded in a way we haven't seen since the Undertaker streak ended. Twitter was in meltdown mode. Within minutes, Jacob Fatu was trending worldwide. Not just in the US, worldwide. People from Japan, the UK, Australia, everywhere were talking about what just happened. The reactions were split, and this is what makes it so perfect from an engagement standpoint. One camp was absolutely thrilled. Finally, someone new getting elevated. Finally, the bloodline story getting fresh blood. These fans were celebrating like their team just won the championship. But the other camp, the Brock Lesnar defenders, were furious. They were calling it a burial. They were saying WWE just destroyed years of careful character building. They were demanding explanations. And you know what? Both reactions are valid. That's what makes this so brilliant. WWE finally did something that got everyone talking, got everyone emotionally invested. Reddit wrestling forums crashed multiple times because of the traffic. YouTube reaction videos were being uploaded within minutes. Wrestling journalists were scrambling to get backstage information. Prominent wrestling personalities like Chris Jericho, Jim Ross, and Mick Foley were all weighing in on social media with their takes. This became the talk of the wrestling world instantly. Even mainstream sports media picked up the story. ESPN, Bleacher Report, Fox Sports, everyone was covering this. You know, when mainstream media covers wrestling, it's a big deal. So where do we go from here? What's the next chapter in this insane story? Here's what I think needs to happen, and WWE, if you're listening, please don't screw this up. First, you cannot cool Jacob Fatu down. He needs to be on every episode of Smackdown moving forward. He needs to be cutting promos, getting in people's faces, establishing himself as the new final boss of WWE. Second, and this is crucial, the rematch with Brock cannot happen immediately. You need to build tension. Let Brock disappear for a few weeks. Let him heal, both physically and metaphorically. Let the WWE Universe wonder if Brock is coming back. Meanwhile, have Jacob Fatu go on an absolute tear through the roster. Have him destroy everyone in his path. Make him look like an unstoppable force. Make people fear him. Then, when Brock returns, it's not just a wrestling match, it's personal. It's about redemption. It's about Brock trying to reclaim what Jacob took from him, his legacy. And here's a dream scenario. What if we get a triple threat at WrestleMania? Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu versus Brock Lesnar for the Undisputed Championship. The three most dominant forces in WWE history colliding in the biggest match possible. Let's zoom out for a second and talk about what this moment represents for WWE as a company. For years, WWE has been stuck in a pattern. Same main eventers, same storylines, same predictable outcomes. They've been terrified to pull the trigger on new stars because they're worried about short-term revenue. But this Jacob Fatu moment is WWE finally taking a risk. They're finally elevating someone unexpected, and the response has been overwhelming. This proves what diehard wrestling fans have been screaming for years. People want new stars. They want fresh matchups. They want unpredictability. The WWE formula of protecting your top guys at all costs, of having the same people win over and over, of never creating new main eventers, that formula is dying. And moments like this prove that taking risks actually pays off. Look at what AEW has done. They've built multiple new stars by being willing to elevate people. They've created unpredictable programming by not following the same tired patterns, and their fan base is rabid because of it. WWE is finally learning that lesson, and if they commit to it, if they actually follow through and make Jacob Fatu a legitimate main event player, this could be the start of a new era of WWE. But, and this is a big but, WWE has to resist the temptation to revert to their old ways. They can't let this be a one-off moment. They can't let Jacob have one big moment and then fade into obscurity. The wrestling business is at a crossroads. Fans are more educated than ever before. They know when they're being fed BS. They can smell when promotions are playing it safe instead of creating compelling content. This Jacob Fatu moment is WWE's chance to prove they're willing to evolve, to take chances, to trust their audience with bold storytelling. Look, here's the bottom line that I need every single person watching this video to understand. What happened between Jacob Fatu and Brock Lesnar wasn't just a segment. It wasn't just an angle. It was a paradigm shift in how WWE approaches star making. For over 20 years, Brock Lesnar has been the measure of dominance in WWE. Beating Brock meant something. Surviving against Brock meant something. But Brock was also untouchable in a way that made it boring. Jacob Fatu didn't just beat Brock, he shattered the illusion. He proved that Brock is human. He proved that even the beast can be destroyed. And whether you love it or hate it, you can't deny that this was the most talked about moment in wrestling in years. This is wrestling at its best. This is what we crave as fans. Moments that make us jump out of our seats. Moments that make us immediately call our wrestling buddies. Moments that break the internet. But now the pressure is on WWE. They created this moment, now they have to deliver on the promise. They have to make Jacob Fatu into the megastar that this moment suggests he can be. If they do it right, we're looking at the next great era of WWE. If they screw it up, this will go down as one of the biggest missed opportunities in wrestling history. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also worried. WWE has let us down before. They've had lightning in a bottle and failed to capitalize. Let's hope they learn from past mistakes. All right, Wrestle Scope family, I need to hear from you. Sound off in the comments right now. Do you think Jacob Fatu should be the next WWE Champion? Are you excited about this new direction, or do you think WWE just made a huge mistake by having Brock lose like this?
Do you want to see the rematch, or should Jacob move on to bigger targets like Roman Reigns? And here's the controversial question I want you to answer. Is Brock Lesnar's career over, or is this just the beginning of a redemption arc that's going to be incredible? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's get a discussion going. I read every single comment, and I want to know what the Wrestle Scope community thinks about this nuclear bomb that just dropped on WWE. If this video got you hyped, if it made you angry, if it made you think, smash that like button right now. Help me get this video in front of as many wrestling fans as possible, because this is the conversation the entire wrestling world needs to be having. And if you're not already subscribed to Wrestle Scope, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're going to be covering every single development in this story as it unfolds. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Share this video with your wrestling friends. Post it on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, everywhere. Let's make sure the entire wrestling community knows what just went down and why it matters. I'm your host at Wrestle Scope, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay passionate about wrestling, stay critical when WWE deserves it, and never stop demanding the best product possible. This is Wrestle Scope, where we tell you what really happened.